But this justice is administered by the courts. And we are hoping that, come what may, the Supreme Court would hear this matter and make an appropriate determination.
Okay. Mr. Samajemfi, our friends on the other side have also begun saying that our attempt to go to court is an attempt to subvert the will of the people. It is a constitutional coup d'etat and other things. What's your opinion? Should we be commended or we should be condemned?
You see, sometimes I don't understand the NDC, whether they believe in democracy. Because in a democracy, there are rules and regulations. Basically, it's called the rule of law. The laws of this country, okay, allows that, or anticipated that there would be a day where there could be electoral disputes. And in instances where these things have happened, people have picked cudgels, guns, and shot at each other. But if the people, the framers of our law, foresaw this and has made it part of our constitution or our laws, that if there should be an election and there's any dispute, the Chief Justice must set up an election dispute court to look into these matters. And in the case of the NPP, unlike what the NDC did, it's important that Ghanaians get to know that in 2008, when they claimed that figures were being changed, the General Secretary, War Smoke, stood on the car and indeed told Ghanaians to march on the EC. We all saw what Kwenu Metununu did. They were, yes, did.
We'll meet you on the streets.
We'll meet you on the streets. We in NPP didn't say we'll meet them on the streets. We wrote a letter to the EC raising issues with it. The EC told us that he wasn't going to listen to us and told us to go to court, and we are in court. So we don't know what they want. Which is the best way? That if I find an issue with you, is it proper that I follow the laws of the country, or I take the law into my own hands? I do not get them. But the fact is this: we as law-abiding citizens, okay, believe that we must apply the laws of this country. And the only way democracy would grow, would be entrenched, is testing all the various laws enshrined in our law books. It is only then that we can grow as a country. So people should thank us. The NDC should be thankful, okay, that the NPP has taken this path. But sadly, you have them, saying things that, it's not worth repeating, okay? But the good thing is this: if they felt that what we're doing was not sensical, why are they now applying to join the suit? Okay, so clearly, we as a party have taken the rightful way. We believe in our courts, we believe in the judiciary, and we believe that we have a genuine case, and for that matter, the truth will prevail. Because you see, whenever you talk about peace, there can be no peace without justice. There is nowhere, not even in the Bible. Okay? When Paul was being attacked by the Jews, this is the man who could heal. His shadow could heal. Handkerchief from him could heal. You know what he did? He had to go and sue the Jews in the Roman court to seek protection of the Roman government. But for that matter, Paul could have accomplished his work prescribed for him by God. They would have killed him. You understand? So there is nowhere that there can be peace without justice. And if we have taken this, and the justice is not that our laws has put in place the judiciary to deal with this, to administer justice in this country. And so if we put our evidence before them, what is the hullabaloo? I really don't get them.
Okay. Now, Mr. Samajemfi, again, for those who may not be privy to the facts of the matter, what really is the case of the NPP?
The NPP strongly believes and have evidence that there were irregularities across about 4,000 polling stations.
4,907.
907 polling stations. And the results for which, if allowed to stand, the will of the people of this country would have been tainted. Okay? And so we believe that there are over 1.34 million votes which must be invalidated by the Electoral Commission, by the Supreme Court. Okay?
And on that point, I would want to cut in here. By the figures that you are given, this means that 1 out of every 8 votes that were cast is invalid. Again, if you would home in on the sheet that we have here, on the graphical presentation, if you take any 8 votes that were cast, 1 out of those 8 votes as per the results declared, is technically, legally invalid. That's the case.
Now, these irregularities has been broken into about 4 or 5 areas. There's what we call the overvotes, due to total vote exceeding ballot papers issued. Okay? And that amounts to 620,443 votes. Okay? And our opponents are saying that it is mere administrative error. Okay? Now, voting without biometric verification. We all heard Dr. Farijan telling the people of this country that no verification, no vote. I have relatives who could not vote because the machine didn't accept them.
I could not vote because the machine didn't accept.
That's right. Okay? And a total of 456,933 ballots of people were allowed to vote without going to the verification machine. Must we allow this to stand? Then some same serial numbers for different polling stations. How can that be? That you have same polling number for different polling stations at different locations. Where from that? Okay, that amounts to about 50,778 votes. And then missing presiding officer signature on the red sheets. Okay, let's ask Dr. Farijan himself. In the declaration that he did, if he did not sign it, would Parliament accept it, or would the people of Ghana accept it? Will it become law? And the rule is that the presiding officer must sign. You can forgo that of the polling agents, but that of the presiding officer must be there.
Yeah.
Okay, he is presiding over it. Okay, it's as if he was not there. Okay, then you have words and figures don't match. Okay, where they have written 972,000 in words. Okay, but they've gone to read 600 and something in words. You understand? They in figures. So it also do not match. That one is about 3,841 votes. Now, a total of which is 1,340,081 votes. What we are asking the Supreme Court, per the EC's own regulation, Farijan told the people of this country that if one ballot paper should exceed the total ballot issue, he is going to cancel the results. Okay? And so what we're asking the Supreme Court to do is that these are irregularities for which he must nullify these results.
Lawyer, straightforward question. Do we have legal basis to demand these things?
Well, we have solid legal basis to make these representations in court. In the first place, the Constitution is a foundation document that, governs the conduct of us Ghanaians all. But the Constitution is just a broad outline. The fine details are, found, are captured in statutes, that is Acts of Parliament, legislative instruments, constitutional instruments, and so on and so forth. So if you look at Article 51 of the 1992 Constitution, it provides that, the right to vote is enshrined in the Constitution. That is fine. But the right to vote cannot operate on its own accord. It needed to be supported by some other legislations. Okay. And so the Electoral Commission has been given the mandate to come out with a constitutional instrument to govern how votes and elections generally are to be conducted in this country. And so when the Electoral Commission came out with CI 75, they didn't just come out with it for a fun. They were really serious.
Okay.
That is why the provisions in the CI 75, when you read together, states that a voter must go through biometric verification process before such a voter can cast his vote. If you don't go through the biometric verification process, it's as though you have not voted at all.
Okay, so if you hold on for me at this stage, we'll take our first break and then come back to hear lawyer Mohammed Awal explain the legal basis for the court action by the New Patriots. Welcome back to the program. Today we are discussing the NPP's petition to the Supreme Court and matters arising out of that. We mean the studios are Mr. Asamoah Jenfi and lawyer Awal Mohammed to give us education on the necessary matters as they exist now. Before we went for the break, lawyer was telling us the basis for the NPP's court action? Lawyer, you may continue at this stage.
Well, as I indicated earlier, the CI 75 is the election regulations. The Electoral Commission is required by law to issue regulations to govern the conduct of elections.
And that's based on Article 51.
Article 51 of the
If
Constitution.
if
If
you
you look at Article 51 of the Constitution, it says in no uncertain terms.
If you allow me, I'll read Article
can read it
51
for
of
me.
the Constitution that says that the Electoral Commission shall,
That is,
By-
that is mandatory.
by constitutional instrument, make regulations for the effective performance of its function under this Constitution or any other law, and in particular for the registration of voters, the conduct of public elections and referenda, including provision for voting by proxy.
Very well. So you realize that the CI 75 as an instrument is derived from the Constitution.
Yes.
The power to make that instrument is derived from the Constitution. So that if the Electoral Commission does not come out with a CI, it will find it almost impossible to conduct an election. How is it going to do it? It's a procedural requirement. It's the procedure by which you conduct an election. If you look at the Constitution, it says that there shall be an election at the end of every 4 years. But it does not provide the fine details as to how the election is going to be conducted. So it gives that power to the Electoral Commission to issue a CI. The CI to regulate how the election will be conducted. So that is the basis of
75.
CI 75.
Yeah.
And in the CI, you are supposed to state how the processes are going to be followed. From A, you go to B, from B, you go to C, and so on and so forth.
Which
So the
was
Electoral
done.
Commission realizing that one of the biggest problems they are facing is multiple voting, multiple registration, fraud at polling stations, and so on and so forth, decided together with all the stakeholders in the electoral process that we are going to go what? Biometric registration process. And that is why they passed the CI 72.
Yeah.
That is for election regulation, for the registration of voters. There's also a regulation separately. There is a regulation for registration of voters, and there is a regulation for the election itself. So the CI 72 was for registration of voters. That determined how the voting registration was going to be done. And that was how come we conducted the last registration exercise using the biometric machines. So that when the election was also going to be conducted, they passed CI 75. That was to enable them conduct the elections. Inherent in that CI 75 is a requirement that before a voter will be allowed to cast his vote at a polling station, that voter must go through biometric verification process. If you look at regulation 31(2),
It's 32, actually.
32 rather.
If you allow me, I'll read it again.
Very well.
That the voter shall go through a biometric verification process.
Very well. So the shall there is mandatory. You cannot vote if you haven't gone through the biometric verification. Yes, voting is a right, but that right is not standing in isolation. That right stands together with other rights, with other requirements, other regulations, other administrative requirements. So the people who are talking about administrative requirements, it appears they are not reading the Constitution well. They are not reading even the CI 75 well. They are turning they are reading the statute upside down. Because if you look at regulation 30A, it talks about how you verify, how you identify the person.
Yeah. 31.
31, no, 31, yes,
Yeah,
31.
yes,
It talks about how to identify the voter. And the emphasis there is on fingerprint, because there is the requirement that your biodata, which has been captured during the registration process, must be confirmed. That is, it must tally with the person who is standing before the electoral officer and seeking to vote. If you haven't gone through that, or if you go through that and it fails to pick you, then there is something wrong. You see, this country too, fortunately, we are governed by a constitution. And the constitution, frowns on discrimination. You cannot ask one set of voters to go through biometric verification process before they vote, and then allow other set of voters to vote with a verification, going through a verification process, i.e. the use of biometric verification machine. For instance, we are told as per the presentation of Dr. Baumia, that in about 4,000, about 456,000 voters in certain parts of the country have voted without having gone through the verification machine. I have seen in my polling station, 3 people came and they were not allowed to vote. And there are so many reported cases of people not being allowed to vote because they could not go through the biometric verification process. And this is inherent in the law. You see, we are told, for instance, in the Upper West region, some parts of the Volta region, some parts of even the Northern region, where either the election officials and the party agents, in response to the request by the president that if somebody goes to the polling station and he's unable to be verified through the use of the bio machine, the person should be allowed to vote once. So we are told in some places people voted without going through that process. Those votes should not count because you have failed to comply with the requirements of the law. And where the law require that something should be done in a particular way, it can only be done that way. Okay. You cannot change it.
Okay.
And there are so many authorities of the Supreme Court to the effect that where the law requires that a particular act must be done in a particular way, you cannot change it.
Okay.
You cannot change. If you can change it, then you have to go and amend the law. Okay. This CI 75 has not been amended.
Okay.
And so even the Electoral Commissioner does not have the right to ask anybody to vote without being verified through the verification machine. So if somebody, some big man somewhere requests that, oh, people should be allowed to vote, because if you do that, you have held them to disobey the law. Okay. And the moment you flout the law, you will not be allowed to benefit from your, disobedience of the law.
Okay. It's very interesting the way you put it. But again, I can state as a matter of fact that as we went through the pink sheets, every single polling station in this country where people voted without the verification machine, John Mahama won. I repeat that fact. That in every polling station in this country where people were allowed to vote without the verification process, John Mahama, the president now, won. Mr. Samuel Jemfi, now it has been established that we have a legal basis for our court action. But when we spoke about the court action, they said no evidence, you have no evidence, a lot of things came up. Now we've presented the case to court. The very first thing that comes up is that, yes, you cannot see the president. Lawyer will react to that. But the much noise that has been created by the NDC, what do you make of it?
You see, it's much ado about nothing. Okay? The rule of the game as a presiding officer is that you must account for every document given to you at the polling station, at the end of close of poll. Okay? I have a pink sheet here. Okay? And B, no, it's rather C. It's written on it. Ballot accounting to be filled at the end of poll before counting commences. Okay? If to be filled before, what it means is that before you start counting, you must let the people there know how many ballot papers you issued. What it then means is that automatically the total number of votes that will be declared, including spoiled ones, okay, must not exceed the ballot papers that you issued. Now, how come that in a particular polling station, the officer says 227 sheets were issued, 227 sheets were issued, 277 ballot papers were issued, okay? Now he says the total votes is 291. How come? Now someone is telling us, the NDC is telling us, oh, it is administrative error. How? Which accounting process allows that? Accounting principle allows that. This is equivalent to my basic accounting balance sheet. If I run away from accounting because of balance sheet, you understand? I was good at the rest. When you are telling you that you should balance the sheet, I couldn't balance it. So I had to balance. That's right. Because that's the principle of accounting. You can write all the things you want to write, but if you are taught to balance the sheet and you fail to do it, you are a bad accountant. Your accounting can never be used for any other thing. What justifies it? Now you come and tell me that it is administrative error. So from now onwards, we should allow our bankers. I can write my check 10,000 in figures and go and write 999 in words, and I expect the check to be honored. And all of these regulations has laws governing it, has rules governing it in the EC's, what do you call it, principle of fairness in the election process. So these are the evidence we have. Now they come and say, oh, it has been happening. Oh, so if something has been happening, and I decide to, if I've been stealing from you and you keep quiet, and one day you say, no, as for this, someone, you pick my gari, I must take you to the police station. I'll go to the police station and I'll go before court and say, oh, my lord, I've been stealing from him. He has not been arresting me. So today I wonder why he has brought me to court. Stealing is stealing, whether you're caught or not. You understand? And let me read from the EC's own. This is what they issued for us to train our polling agents. The EC issued it. Okay, this book. Now, which has been signed by Dr. Farijan himself. Okay? Signed by him himself. Now, in page 17, it is headed Election Offenses. An election offense refers to an act, any act or omission, right? Any act or omission in connection with an election that constitute a corrupt practice under the electoral law and regulations, or an offense under the criminal code. Such acts or omissions have been made illegal. You know, acts and omissions. Even if this is an omission, it's an offense.
And it cannot be an omission.
No, from their own judgment, from the defense the NDC is putting up. All the NDC gurus are putting it up. That it is administrative error. Haven't you heard that? So it's presumed to be an omission, right? So if it's an omission, it is an offense per Afarijan's own instructions. So if the NPP have these things, must we allow it to stand? Must we allow the will of the people to be changed because of some officers' omission? You understand? Then how must elections be held in this country? All I need to do is to still first get the EC to declare me winner, and I tell you, don't worry, come next time.
Okay, now let's go back to lawyer for another legal perspective. Can the president be sued? But before you answer that, welcome back to Minority Caucus. Before we went for our break, lawyer Mohammed Awal was giving us a legal perspective on this question. Lawyer, can the president be sued?
Yes. The president, as John Mahama, can be sued. The president, as John Mahama, can be sued. You see, I have noticed, sadly, that a lot of lawyers were misreading Article 57 of the 1992 Constitution. When it sues them, they just read Article 57(5). We don't read statutes like that. The modern purposive approach to interpretation of Constitution and all other statutes is that you read the statute as a whole. You don't pick and choose. You don't pick and choose. There have been instances where the president had been wrongly sued. In such cases, yeah, the Supreme Court will quickly, strike him out as a party in most of those cases. For instance, if the president is acting in his official capacity as president, you will not be allowed to sue him. If you even have to sue him whilst acting in official capacity, then you have to come under Article 2 of the 1992 Constitution or under Article 23. In those cases, the actions of the president, are subject to judicial review. The courts can question the actions of the president. If you look at Article 57 of the Constitution, Article 57(4) talks about, with a prejudice to the provisions of Article 2 of this Constitution and subject to the operation of the prerogative writs, the president shall not, while in office, be liable to proceedings in any court for the performance of his functions, for the performance of what? His functions. Whilst in office, for the performance of his functions, you cannot take him on in the course of law. Or for any act done, or omitted to be done, or purported to be done, or purported to have been done, or purporting to be done in the performance of his functions. The emphasis is what? His functions. That's the operative word. So you don't just jump and read Article 57.5 that the president shall not, while in office as president, be personally liable to any civil criminal. Though that is not how to read the statute. Read them as a whole. So and you realize that if he's performing as president, it becomes difficult for you to take him on. But in the current circumstance, the president is being dragged to court because he was engaged in functions other than his official functions as the president. If he's a president, he goes to contest an election. He's equal to, just like any other candidate in the elections. Don't forget that this very constitution says in Article 17, that all persons shall be equal before the law. All persons shall be what? Equal before the law. A person shall not be discriminated against on grounds of gender, race, color, ethnic origin, religion, creed, or social or economic status. A person shall not be. We are dealing with John Mahama as a person. We are not dealing with him as a president.
As a candidate.
As a candidate in the election. So we are not dealing with John Mahama. If the lawmakers had not anticipated this kind of, situation, they would not have made provision in the Constitution.
And especially
and look, and listen to how they describe discrimination. For the purpose of this article, to discriminate means to give different treatments to different persons, attributable only or mainly to their respective descriptions by race, place of origin, political opinions, color, gender, occupation, whereby persons of one description are subjected to disabilities or restrictions to which persons of another description are not made subject or are granted privileges or advantages which are not granted to persons of another description. So can you see the absurdity?
Okay.
In the so-called the president cannot be sued.
The president cannot be sued.
It is not possible.
Especially
Look,
when the rules of the Supreme Court.
Excuse me. I hear people saying that it will be unconstitutional to sue the president or an action against the president because that action is being brought under the rules of court.
That's
okay?
CI-74.
Under the rules of court, the CI-74, it is unconstitutional because the CI-74 is an inferior law. That is not the case. That is not the case. That is not the case in the sense that the president has contested an election together with other candidates. Another candidate had realized that this election had been, manipulated for the president. You cannot deny that candidate the right to contest the results of that election in court. In fact, the Supreme Court would create a very big problem if they say that you cannot sue the president. Then what is your remedy? It is the principle of equity that every human being should have a remedy in court. You should have his day in court.
Okay.
If you are president and you have gotten involved in private matters, you can be sued in court. Let the president decide not to take care of his child today. The child can sue him in court, in family court. Let the president go and breach a promise to marry a lady that he has, courted for some time today. She can sue him in court. There are things he can do that he cannot be sued. But when it comes to issues like engaging in private matters, engaging in elections, election is not part of his presidential functions. So how can anybody say that the president cannot be sued? I have seen people, for instance, quoted the cases of, for instance, Apalu. Okay. The Apalu case. Some of them also using the case of Sinandaburi, using the case of, I think, there was a case that he had used. Yeah. I think that this thing against NPP against Attorney General and Rollins. In that case, the Supreme Court said in unambiguous terms that the president is not completely immune from court suits. What he has is what we call procedural immunity. Procedural immunity. When he's acting as a president, in the course of work as president, you can't sue him. If the president goes to engage in elections, together with other parties, should he be treated differently? To treat him differently would go against the spirit of this constitution.
Okay. All right.
So there is a solid basis for the president being sued in court, or for this matter being taken to court. And I can assure you that he will remain as a party in this case, because there's no way he can come out. If he comes out, what would that mean?
Okay. The implications,
you know,
of it
the implication will be so there.
Mr. Samajinfi, let's address our minds to this issue. On this particular point, there's a new professor in town, Professor Emeritus Asiedun Ketia, Professor of Law, Mathematics and Logic. He says that the NPP, we are blockheads because we cannot sue the president. How do you look at the whole situation of the use of language in this? Start from the point where the same Professor Emeritus Asiedun Ketia, Professor of Law, Logic and Mathematics, came to say any idiot, for instance, can go to court. The NPP has a problem with mathematics. The NPP use of language in such very, you know, temperate times. How do you see it?
You see, just a little, I like giving precedence. President Kufuor was also hauled to Shiraj when he was president in 2002 by Albert Bagwin on the case that he's used state money to donate to his house. Did the Shiraj strike it out that the president cannot be brought before it? The president had to go there with his lawyer to represent him until Albert Bagwin decided to drop the case. So when was that? You see, the NDC, I keep on saying, behave like a typical, you know, their tongue is like that of a snake, pick and choose.
Even in the UK recently, the UK Prime Minister had to appear before a committee.
That's right.
That had the powers of a court.
A court. You understand? So clearly, my worry is that they are not speaking to the evidence we have adduced. You understand? I wish they'll come and say, no, we use verification machine. Okay? And come and disprove us. Or it is not true that 227 ballot papers were issued and 291 was declared. Then you can be making a case. But to come and say that the president cannot be sued, please.
Side issues.
These are red herrings.
There is this attempt by our opponents to create the impression that we were against people voting.
That's why I brought the verification machine.
Yeah, that's why I brought the verification machine. That is not the case. We were not saying that people should not vote. Everybody must vote. In fact, there have been a lot of NPP supporters who have been disenfranchised as a result of this verification machine.
My own mother-in-law.
So what is it? We are saying that we have both subscribed to this constitution and other laws that help to, you know, to the constitution to operate. So that if through the constitutional instrument, the Electoral Commission has come out with this document to govern the conduct of the elections, it's only fair and proper that we all together, as parties, as stakeholders in the election, cooperate with the Electoral Commission to ensure that this thing was done. My sadness, however, is with Dr. Afarijan. Why? Why? Because when the election was going on and there were problems in some polling stations with the biometric verification machine, I stood at my polling station after about 6 o'clock until we heard an announcement that we should go home and come the next morning to vote. We still stood there. Meanwhile, we were there right in the morning. Other people, as soon as the machine was not functioning, it was 11 o'clock, and they heard that the president had said that, oh, people should be allowed to vote and so on and so on. They never even waited for instruction from the Electoral Commission, as required by this, you know, material. If you look at this CI 75,
so do I get the impression that the president's statement directly influences?
Yes,
in fact, it influences.
Yes,
it directly influences how
it was
and why some electoral officers allow the voting to go on without the verification machine being used. If you look at Regulation 30, adjournment of polls, it says where the proceedings at a polling station are interrupted or obstructed by A, riot, because we always anticipated that there will be snatching of ballot boxes, there will be violence at the polling stations. That's A, riot. And B, breakdown of an equipment. The election in that area, the presiding officer shall, in consultation with the returning officer, and subject to approval of the commission, adjourn the proceedings the following day.
And shall is mandatory.
Mandatory. So all those places where the machines are broken down, the right thing for them to have done was to contact the returning officers there for appropriate directive for them to adjourn that election to the next morning. But unfortunately, some of them fell into this trap by the president that, oh, people should be allowed to vote if they have their IDs and so on and so forth. And they granted access, unfettered access to people, and they were just voting. And I can assure you that most of the places that these malpractices happen were places where people did not vote with biometric verification machines. Because that is where you have places where people can vote 4 times, 6 times, and 7 times.
And I'm saying that as a matter of fact, every single polling station in this country where voting without the verification machine happened, John Mahama, and I'm omitting the president because he was a candidate in that election,
yes,
so that people do not say I do not respect. John Mahama won at that polling station. It's a fact. But I would have to take my 3rd break here and come back to continue. Welcome back to the show. This is Minority Caucus. We've been discussing the NPP's petition and matters arising out of that particular petition. Mr. Samajinfi, you were speaking on the issue that the NDC seems not to be interested in the substance of the case. Now, I would want you to address the issue of also the integrity of our elections. What implication, if these allegations are found to be true, does it have for our entire electoral process?
Well, per the rules set up by Dr. Farija himself, he said if one single vote by the Electoral Commission, which was echoed several times by Dr. Farija himself, said that if one single vote exceeds the total ballot issued, that polling station result will be cancelled. So as per the evidence we have, the over 600,000 votes must be cancelled. He says, and backed by the law, that no verification, no vote. And so anybody who voted without verification, that vote must also be declared null and void. Okay? And so until and unless the NDC is able to come and disprove what we are saying, for heaven's sake, they should stop what they're saying. Because this whole thing about administrative error is an omission. The law says it cannot be allowed.
Okay. Let me announce the phone line so that our viewers can join us in this discussion. The phone lines are 030-211-70124. I'll repeat it as I usually do. 030-211-70124. The text lines, as always, remain 1760. Please join. We have on the line, I've been informed, Masaud from Techiman.
Good evening, Nana.
Yes, boss.
Nana, thank you for the marvelous work that you are doing for Ghanaians and all NPP. Nana, there is some propaganda that is making by NDC people. Me, what I want Afarijan, plus Asedun Kecha and NDC people to come out and say what NPP brought to court is lie. Voting without verification is lie. The evidence that they say 1.3 million votes have been stolen and added for your mama, it is lie, and they bring evidence. You have no evidence, and NPP brought evidence to court, and you are worrying. You know that you didn't steal, and they said that who stole this thing, the thief, you will kill him, and you are worrying about that. Why are you worrying? And let me tell you, Nana, I want you to talk about some propaganda making by NDC cadres. Today I heard Radio Gold. Kosi Pratt was on Radio Gold today telling Ghanaians that NPP said if the court didn't rule in favor of them, they will establish all die, not to your mama, not to Ghanaians, but to the judges. That they will fail judges all die.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have on the line Idrisu. Hello, my brother.
Yeah. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening to you too, Idrisu.
And thanks for the good work we are doing for the people of Ghana.
Thank you. We're welcome. Hello.
Hello, I'm calling from Wamfie.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I want to assure the nation and the NPP leadership that the grassroots, we are solidly behind them. People want to create the impression that we don't have in the court case. We are solidly behind them. We are praying and supporting every step that they take towards this cause, because we all believe that something and therefore we are solid. They shouldn't be dissuaded by the propaganda that the people have started peddling around us. If we, the grassroots, don't support what we are doing, what they are doing.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I have Kojo from Offenso. Kojo, can you hear me, please?
Yeah, I'm Bonosa.
So, okay.
South constituency.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very happy that the way things are going. Because I told my friends that if NPP doesn't take this matter far, then there is no need for me to vote for NPP. And that is exactly what we are doing. You're doing a good job. Let me say something. That propaganda is not a virtue. You get it? You should move from some of these things, like the way NDCs are doing their things. They should move from there, and then we do a lot of intellectual discussion for our people to be able to siphon us and then be able to select the better candidate to lead this our country. This is not the way forward for us. So I'm just pleading to the NDC people that they should learn from the NPP, the way we do our things, the kind of intellectual display that we put to bear for people to understand our issues, articulate our issues to people, for them to vote for us. Some of these things that they do.
Okay, thank you very much. I have Azuma from Boko, and this will be my last caller. Azuma, you're welcome.
Thank you so much, sir. Well, I've listened to the discussion, and somehow it's unfortunate. I wish that the NPP people would reason that Ghanaians decided. It wasn't an individual decision. Nana wasn't the one who decided. And so he needs to listen to us and let us decide. I'm sure if he reasons well and appeal to us, we would see what we can do for him next time. It is not an issue about court. I'm sure if he knew that it was court that would have given him the position, he should have rather gone to court to contest it and let court give him and make him the president and not ask Ghanaians to vote. And he turned around to tell Ghanaians that, yes, I wouldn't agree your verdict, I'm sending it to court. It's rather unfortunate. It's a bad practice. And we ought to know that we are not leading the country. We are setting a precedent that will not help us.
Sure.
We have Kim Bruce from Kumasi. Forgive me if I'm laughing. Kim Bruce, welcome.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Nana, there is something going on in Ghana which we need to know the fact and the truth in it. We want to know if whether the country is for NPP or what. Because during President Kufuor's administration, when he won, the NDC never sent them to court, saying that they stole or something like that.
That's not true.
So why is that President John Mahama has won the election and the NDC people are saying that they've stolen from them? That is what we want to know.
Can I answer that?
That should be the case. Any election being held in Ghana,
Kim Bruce.
any opposition will send the case to court.
Kim Bruce.
Nana.
You've raised some very serious questions. Can I answer you?
Yeah, you can answer me, please.
Point one. It is never true that the NDC did not send the NPP to court. In 2006, Rojo Metal, Nunu and Co. sent President Kufuor to court on the allegation that he stole the election. The Supreme Court ruled against them. That's point one. Point two. To say, my brother, that this case that the NPP is pursuing is not fair is also to be bereft of the facts. Are you saying that the evidence that has been adduced, that there was voting without verification, is false? Are you saying that overvoting never happened in this election? If they did, then I believe that it is in your interest, as well as in my interest, that we safeguard the integrity of our electoral process by allowing this case to go to court. In the long run, the Supreme Court will decide. The accounts have a saying that Woody Kain or court now undi bim. We have just gone to court. The court will rule. So my brother, let us exercise patience and allow the matter to take its course. Thank you very much.
Nana, can I come inside, please?
I'm very sorry. I'm almost out of time. So thank you very much for your contribution. But I believe that we've established some very basic agreement in this matter. Just 30 seconds each.
You see, the 2 or 3 last callers, you know, so you mean to tell me that as he sits down, if his father bequeaths something to him and his uncle come and say that I will not allow you to take it, he will not pursue the matter? He won't take it to the elders?
That's a good point. Lawyer?
Well, I would want to appeal to our teaming supporters that they should keep faith with the party. The party leadership is doing everything possible to ensure that by the end of the day, the stolen verdict is overturned. We are confident that by the end of the day, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who had been elected by the people of this country on the 7th and 8th December 2012, would be declared the president instead of the person who has been, so declared by the Electoral Commission.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, to wrap up, I just have a very simple statement. Integrity is the most important thing that we can wish for in any electoral process. The person you vote for must be the person who is declared. If that is not the case, then we have a problem. I understand all the many grievances that are coming from so many quarters. But my brothers and sisters, let's think about this. Really, is there no evidence that irregularities happened in this election? If there is that evidence, is it substantial? My name is Nana Kofi Opondamo. Think on these words, and let's meet again next week for more.